Hello and good afternoon and welcome along to this live with C Learning. My name is Sammy, if we've not met before. We're going to be talking all about Google Workspace for Education today. I have a super exciting panel joining us as well in a really few moments. They're sat backstage, they're ready to go. But we want this to be a really great chat today. And I think the best part about a chat is when you tell us what you want to hear about. So if you want to hear something about a particular feature, or if you want to ask questions about something, or if you think we might have an idea that might help you face a challenge that you're facing at the moment, please do drop that in the comments in the YouTube and we'll pick those questions up as we go through and at the end as well. The reason we are here today, like I say, is to talk about Google Workspace for Education. If you are interested in a free trial of the Plus features, and there will be a talk of some of the Plus features as we go through today, you can scan that QR code and you can be taken straight to the form to be signed up for a free trial. So just while the panelists are settling in, I'm just going to talk a little bit about a little overview about what we've got coming up today. So we're going to be talking about some of the teaching and learning capabilities within Google Workspace for Education. This is just a quick overview. So if you've only got 2 minutes, stay with us for these 2 minutes to see what's coming up, and then you can come back in later and catch up on all the chat. Like I say, ask any questions in the comments as we go through. We've got people watching the chat to pick up those questions as well. So Google Workspace for Education, there's been some changes and there's some new cool and exciting features, and it's just to get you excited about those. We're going to be talking about Google Classroom and add-ons. And I think that's really exciting for creating engaging content. I think there's some really cool things that we can do with that. We're going to be talking about integrating that content into Classroom and creating classrooms at scale. One of the biggest things that's been a challenge for a really long time is creating classrooms at scale. So we also want to talk about originality reports today. And I think in an age of, is the essay dead, and all those kind of things, it's really important that we focus on originality reports as a teaching tool. Can they check against past students' work? Can they check against other students in the school? And can we turn it into a learning opportunity? Plagiarism shouldn't be a naughty P word. How do we leverage that as a learning opportunity and develop those digital citizenship skills that we need for life? So one of the cool things is that it can check against previously handed in work within the organisational unit, the OU, the school or the college that you're working in. And that is super powerful. I used to work in further education colleges, and we would have thousands of students handing in work in Google Classroom. So this will make a massive difference. And then we've got something that if you are in a large scale organization, something that, you know, we've been crying out for, and Google have listened, and they've built in now approve internal documents. So it's that, who's working on this document? Who do we need to approve this document? And how do we build that approval in there as well? You know, I need to request this from you. I think this is particularly useful around planning trips. Like I say, I used to work in a college as well, those BTEC assessments or those extensions to deadlines and seeking that approval, really, really powerful feature that's landed. And then, of course, Google Meet. Where would we be without Google Meet? I think we owe Google Meet a debt of gratitude for the past few years. But we've got recording meetings, we've got reference what was discussed in class and using a transcript. I myself have a hearing impairment, so a transcript is really essential for me, but also for students who maybe are neurodiverse, neurodivergent, who want to go back to and reflect on certain points, a really powerful feature. Similarly, translations to remove language barriers. Yes, we might not be using Google Meet as a teaching and learning tool, but we're still talking to parents and we're still talking to people at scale online. And so how do we include everyone in that? And that's included in the broadcasting of large-scale events. And then as well, if we are doing those small-scale, perhaps some CPD on Google Meet, we can ask questions, we can run polls, and we can put breakout rooms ahead of time in a Google Calendar invite. Imagine the time-saving opportunities there. And then ultimately tracking attendance, who did attend that meeting as well. So there's so many amazing things to talk about today. I'm really excited to bring the panel on. I'm going to bring them all on now. So we have Lorraine, we have Georgina, and we have Taryn joining us today. Welcome along, ladies. How are we doing? Good. Yes. Right. Yes. Appropriate thumbs up. Amazing. So we'll just do a little bit of introductions from everyone. If you just want to introduce yourself, where you are from, if you're comfortable saying that, and what you are excited to talk about today, and then throw in that age-old random fact of what is your favorite, I don't know, let's say what's your favorite candy bar? What's your favorite candy bar? And we'll throw that in as well. What's your favorite sweet or chocolate bar? And if you have one, pop them in the comments on YouTube as well. What's your favorite? And I'll pass judgment and see what if it matches my opinion. So I'll go first. My name is Sammy. I am an EdTech consultant and author of the A to Z of EdTech. I was a maths teacher for many years. I am a Google for Education certified trainer, innovator, and coach. I was one of the first coaches outside of USA. And I just absolutely love the power that Google can bring to the classroom. I now work in accessibility and accessible tech, but still really passionate. I've worked in schools, alternative provisions, colleges, lots of different places. You'll find all sorts. And obviously the best candy or chocolate bar in the world is a twirl, which Taryn, I'll find a picture and I'll let you know what it is, but I'm sure you'll approve. Who wants to go next, ladies? Next on my screen, I've got Lorraine. Lorraine, are you okay to go next?
Hi, Sammy. Yes, of course. How's everyone doing today? Thanks for joining us on the call. My name is Lorraine McCool, and I am a deputy principal in a secondary school in Dublin. And I'm also the digital lead in the school. We took up with Google for Education back in 2018 and brought Chromebooks on board, which was transformational for our school. And then we were very proud to become a Google reference school by June 2020. So we love all things Google and love keeping up with the latest technologies that it has to offer. As for my favorite chocolate bar, I think it would have to be a Boost bar from my childhood. I still carry that into today. So we'll see how the numbers go on that one. Thanks very much, Sammy.
I think a Boost is a great shout, Lorraine. Taryn, these are all Cadbury's chocolate. That's the main thread that's coming out so far. I'm looking in the chat and Cadbury's is doing quite well as well. Georgina, do you want to go next?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here. I was thinking mostly about what chocolate bar I was going to throw out there because having lived in so many countries around the world, I actually don't even have my chocolate bars straight. But the first one that came to mind was crunchy, probably because it has little chocolate, but it's got that sort of, crunch to it, obviously. And then Bounty maybe was the other one, just because it's also light and coconutty for the summer weather. So yeah, that was an exciting question I wasn't ready for today, Sammy. So well done. But yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Georgina, and I am currently in England in the UK. So not too far down the way from Sammy and Lorraine, I guess, but across the pond from Taryn. So that's an appropriate term for this one. And that I learned recently living in England. And I've been working in EdTech for almost 2 decades now. So working as a former member of SLT, supporting schools with their digital transformation across EMEA, Africa, and North America. So really excited to be here to talk all things Googly and Google Classroom, as it were. And yeah, looking forward to learning from you guys too.
Thanks, Georgina. And Taryn, last but by no means least, all this chat about chocolate and candy, it's all very Cadbury's themed, so feel free to go rogue and say something different. Someone has put Hershey's in the chat. They are wrong. But Taryn, off you go if you want to introduce yourself.
I would agree with you there. I would actually have to go with Kind bars. Do you guys have them there? They're like chocolate with like a lot of nuts.
Oh yes, we do. Yes.
They're, to me, the perfect mix, like because it has a little caramel and a little chocolate, but it has like a lot of almonds and things in there too. Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm Taryn Sullivan. I'm a product manager at Google for Education, and I'm the lead product manager for Practicesets. So excited to share and learn from you ladies. I think the interesting thing about me to know from my background is I really am an entrepreneur. So I've built a couple of companies, two in the ed tech space. So one was an educational robotics company built off of the Raspberry Pi. So very project-based learning types of activities. And then one was a project-based learning like educational platform that Google acquired about 4 years ago. So that's how I joined Google, was through that acquisition. So something that is very much like how I operate is just always talking to my customers. So always working with teachers. Ever since the robotics days, I would just bring a robot in to a class and just watch and just listen and just ask tons of questions. And so that's what I continue to do with Practicesets. And I'd say that we have a lot of open channels for teachers and curriculum teams and admins, everyone, whoever wants to talk to us, you can find a way to talk to us. And we can share some of those after too, if it's possible, Sammy. Our office hours are open. We like to hear from you early and often about the good, bad, and ugly. So excited for this conversation today.
I think super speaks to my heart that, Taryn, that Google are listening and, here to help educators deliver better education experiences, and we're super grateful to have actually someone from Google here with us today. So when I said this is a collaborative discussion and put your questions in the chat, you found the chat already because you've told us all about your favorite chocolate or candy bars. Come on in and ask any questions and we'll try to answer them, and if we can't, we'll take them away and we'll make sure that we get a reply to you. Ladies, I'm just going to share, Laura has actually won in the chocolate bar stakes. She said any chocolate. So there we go. Laura wins. Lots of love for a double-decker. White chocolate is terrible. The double-decker, nobody likes white chocolates, it's true. And Cadbury's, yeah, Taryn, it's basically just love for Cadbury's as well. So I'm going to dive into the chat now, ladies, if that's okay. And we are prepared. We have got some questions, but that doesn't stop you diving in with anything in the chat. If you're watching online and asking any questions, we can pick them up as we go through. So I'm going to start with Georgina and the new add-ons. I think they're exciting. I gave a little overview, but I didn't really go into too much detail. Tell me, Georgina, what's exciting for you? How do you see them in the classroom? And where do you see add-ons fit in, and how will they work for teachers, do you think?
Yeah, really great question. Add-ons was a really exciting piece because we always think about, and Google's really good for that, is helping teachers with productivity, but also administrators and leaders. So, when you let a teacher know, hey, this is going to be available right here, it means they don't have to swap tabs and go and grab a link from another product and then bring it into Google Classroom and then open it up elsewhere. Everything exists natively now into one space, right? So teachers can go there very easily. And I had a lot of smiles when sharing that with teachers when they first came out. So that's really helpful. And I think the other piece too, when we think about like impact for teaching and learning, is that students have the ability to engage a lot more easier through creation and collaboration. So we think about the 4 to 6, possibly 7 C's now, depending how many we want to add to the pile. We think about these extra tools that connect into Google and exist easily, allow students to practice these skills and build them. So it's not just a matter anymore of being able to, from a rote perspective, take in content, but actually, how are we creating content? How are we learning collaboratively together? And so that's probably my favorite piece about the add-ons, is that teachers don't have to worry about all of these different links they need to bring in. They can just pick one of their toolkit. And I also really like the fact that it's a very nice, small-ish toolkit, that we've taken feedback, as Taryn said, talking to schools and teachers and saying, hey, what are the big tools that teachers are using in classrooms? And let's house those all together inside Google Classroom. So I think that's really useful as well.
Thanks, Georgina. Yeah, I think for me, it's that saving that extra click, and it sort of helps position Google Classroom across all that age phase. I've got very young children, and an extra click to go to another platform to sign in again, even though it's a single sign-on with Google, always perplexed me a little bit. So now we've got that super cool feature where we can just seamlessly integrate. And then the gradebook. My heart when you can see the gradebook from Kahoot, for example, as the add-on in Google Classroom. I'm like, oh, this is life-changing. It's super, super, super cool. Thanks for that, Georgina. And then we'll just throw in as well that formatting in Google Classroom as well has come in now. So you can bold and underline in classroom posts. That is going to make a massive difference as well in just modeling the correct grammar and modeling the way that we would structure answers as well, and providing another learning opportunity for students as well. Learning opportunities for students, and Lorraine, I'm going to come to you because I think one of the biggest things that you're known for at your school are the use of digital portfolios for assessment. And so thinking about that integration to Google Classroom, how important is that for you and how you structure the learning at your school?
Yeah, so we brought in digital portfolios a number of years ago for our transition year students, and transition year is a kind of a year between their junior cycle and their leaving certificate, which is the junior and senior end of the school. So they get to do lots of different learning activities. They get to go out and work experience. They get to do things like first aid training, barista training, anything they want really. And they do a lot of digital as well. So we decided that the form of assessment should be different to mirror the kind of year that it is. And having done the research, we decided that we would go down the route of digital portfolios as a way of showcasing their learning for transition year, and also giving teachers an opportunity to be able to give formative feedback along the year as they developed that lovely digital portfolio. And it's brilliant for their creativity. It knows no bounds. There's so many things. We use Google Sites, of course, for our digital portfolio, so there's no end to the creativity they can bring to the digital portfolio. And it's a lovely piece of work at the end of the year to display on the parents' open night. They share, we have all the Chromebooks, and they go around and show their parents and visitors to the school. And one of the pieces of feedback we got in the first few years was that they would like maybe something visual to add to it, as well as having the digital portfolio there in the Chromebook. So we decided that we would also get students to design a poster. We use Canva, and the reason we picked that was because it integrates so well with Google Classroom, which is really, really easy to use for teachers. And they've designed a poster then with their key skills that they developed over the course of the year. So it's proved really successful. And going into third level, a lot of our students are saying that they're using digital portfolios in third level, and that this is really helping them with the skills that they need for that type of learning, and it has enabled our teachers to be able to give a very rich feedback along their journey. So we found that it has worked really, really well.
I love that. I was mesmerized. I'm just thinking about a visual CV of the skills that they've learned. I think it's an amazing thing. Georgina, you're all about creativity and visuals. That must have spoken to your heart massively.
Absolutely. I love the idea about infographics, and actually that's also one of the add-ons previously in the previous question for Google Classroom with Adobe Express. And so similar product to Canva, obviously, but with the Adobe suite of Creative Cloud products. And so they can create infographics that way too. But I absolutely agree. And what's really nice is that teachers can personalize that so much, either based on content or based on units or based on the students themselves having their own portfolio and then different various contents that way. So it's such an agile and versatile tool, portfolio. So I completely agree. And then just the way that students can choose, like one of my favorite things in Google Sites, a feature released from last year, I think it was the thematic colors and how you can choose your own now. And so the color swatches are really unique. And it really allows students to put in their own personal touch, even heads of department, for example, who would like to create one content library for their subject, etc. There's just so many uses. So great tool.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of love for Google Sites for digital portfolios as well. Stuart, who was an innovator the same year Georgina and I were innovators in 2020, which feels like a million years ago now, loves using a Google Sites for a digital portfolio. I think that massive leaps and bounds in terms of the way we can assess. Thanks for sharing that, Lorraine, as well, and getting the students those skills. I think it leads me to sort of down how we can create different learning opportunities for students, but we want them to feel supported when they're doing their work, and we're driving that independence, that creativity, but they've got to have that support because they're not quite there yet, and that's what we need to do. And I think that's where Practicesets is really interesting, Taryn. And I think Practicesets for me is one of the most exciting things to come to Google Classroom, really. And not that we're the poor relation over here in the UK at all, but I know that the US is a little bit further along with Practicesets. So I wonder if you could share some sort of good news stories. What good stuff have you seen? What are people doing to get the most out of Practicesets that you're seeing at the moment?
Yeah, great question. So we have, I think folks know, just a couple of months ago, we rolled out to general availability in the United States in English, right? So some folks are using it in different places, but we're excited to be learning from this first cohort. And so happy to share some of the really cool things that I think are coming out. Is we sort of had this expectation since we've shared that the skills that are in Practicesets and the coverage of the hints and resources is primarily math and science right now. So we're seeing a lot of great use in math and science, but I think what surprised us was how much ELA has been used and how much feedback we're getting with additional features and ways they want to use it and ways they are using it that we didn't expect. And so just the creativity of teachers never it always surprises me. It's just amazing, like how they want to use it. And I think one of the key features that they're all begging for is the ability to just directly import images, which seems like a basic thing, right? And we're getting there. But I think it's an example of where we try to release as soon as possible to get this value to teachers, as soon as it's really feasible to use. And when we've had enough feedback that it's good enough, but we have so much more that we're building into it. So I'd say we see teachers also using it in class, like during the class period, a lot more than we had initially expected. So I was in I think it was just a second grade class a couple of months ago in Maryland, and it was an ELA lesson, and it was working on prefixes. So the first question was, you had everyone open their practice set, and the first question was just a multiple choice. Basically, what is a prefix? Where does it go? At the beginning, the end, see if they know it. And, the teacher was standing by me and kind of said, okay, let's see. I think these couple of students are going to get the first thing wrong. And then I plan on pulling them out into a small group while the rest continue. And so we're kind of watching the dashboard together. So in Practicesets, there's this insights dashboard that you can see the student progress as they go. And two of the three got it, or all of them got it right. And she said, two of the three got it right. And she thought, okay, I'm going to watch a couple more questions from these other two students and really see if they really have it, or do they just kind of randomly guess it correct, maybe. And sure enough, like they continued great. So she went and grabbed that one student who was struggling, pulled them into the back of the room, had a nice session with them, and then sent them back on their way. And just seeing that live differentiation that was happening to support those students in the moment, and this powerful combination between the tool itself and the real-time feedback. So not only could the teacher see it, but the students that were doing great just continued and didn't interrupt her. One of the big pieces of feedback we got from teachers was, it saves me time from the students that are doing fine. They always raise their hand and want me to check and make sure they're on track. And I was like, yeah, you're good. But this just does that very quickly for them immediately, right? Without the teacher intervening. So I think that was another surprise, just how much time you're saving from that. But yeah, to see it used so effectively in ELA in that way and just real time in the classroom and allowing them to kind of spend time where it's really needed, and then some students finished and moved off to another project or activity, right? They had the slide up on the screen of, okay, do the practice set first and then choose these three. And if you're in this group, do this other activity. And the way teachers are managing these classes to really meet these individual needs of students is just incredible. And so if we can be one tool in the toolkit, we are really excited about that. I think we're also trying to learn about what aspects of this tool would be interesting for our ecosystem as well. And so we're always really interested in that type of feedback of, wow, this, the hints and resources, being able to automatically show them, like maybe that is something in the future as we look to how we grow and extend and support the ecosystem, what we can help with. And so, we don't yes, we want to build out practice sets, but we also are constantly thinking about how to add value to the whole ecosystem and support, all the different tools. So we've gotten feedback like that too. So maybe they'll do a practice set and then they'll have some other activity that they're also doing alongside of it. And so we're trying to understand that better. But we're seeing a lot of in-class work happening and a lot of creativity in terms of, because right now they have to like convert a lot of things into PDFs to bring them in. So we're trying to change it up and make it a little easier. The one other thing I'll just mention is we went into a bunch of schools that actually had devices with touch or styluses. And styluses are less common, but I think they're increasing if we look at Chromebook sales. So it's pretty fun to see that. And a big part of Practicesets is for students to be able to show their work. And so right now, it's a simple drawing tool, but I can tell you there's a lot of cool stuff coming soon there. And so, but some didn't really realize they could do that. And so they may have their laptop just set up like a normal laptop. And we'd say, oh, like flip it, like tent it. And then you can use it, this way and draw on it. And it wasn't something that maybe they had typically done. And so we've been also trying to work with admins and curriculum teams and IT folks to figure out, like the tech coordinators, how to help make the most use of these Chromebooks that they can with this tool. And it's just going to get better and better. So we're excited about that.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I've got a couple of bits. I can actually just reach all that distance. And, a Wacom, this is a 1 by Wacom. There is a Wacom one, but this is the 1 by Wacom. And this is plug and play straight into a Chromebook. So if you're Chrome flexing a device, and I know there was a C-Learning talk about Chrome Flex last week, but if you're Chrome flexing an old device and you want to bring that touch ability, a Wacom is a great way to bring that stylus in as well. But I absolutely love flipping that Chromebook over and getting them to scribble and to annotate and to express themselves. And yeah, I'm a bit old. And there's a song, I don't care how you get here, just get here if you can. And I always say to the kids, I'm like, I don't care I don't care what the answer is. I just care how you get here, just get here if you can. I want to see that method. I want to see that working out. I want to see that journey that you went on to get to that answer. So I think maths was my subject. So it's either right or wrong. And that's not true. It's the journey that it took to get there. And that's where Practicesets really helps. So thanks for that, Taryn. And yeah, you've got everyone excited now. I'm surprised the chat's not full of Taryn. When? Working on it. It's always the answer. Working on it. Lorraine, you were part of the beta testing for Practicesets. How did it go in your school? Who got excited about it? Who got on board with it?
Yeah, so we've a wonderful digital learning team here in the school, and we actually got on the pilot even before the beta testing. So we got to meet with Taryn and give some feedback at different stages along the process. So it's really interesting to hear what you said today, Taryn, about the touch screen and the styluses, because when we went on the pilot, our maths and science teachers were piloting Practicesets. And, I was talking to a few of our teachers, and one of the maths teachers said, you know what we need to get? He said, we need to get a set of Chromebooks with styluses. We have touchscreen ones, but he said, I think that is going to work really well with it. So that was at the end of last year, coming into the summer holidays. And we knew we were going to get one more set of Chromebooks. So we actually invested in Chromebooks with a stylus. So that was really brilliant to have that insight in advance, and now that teacher got to use it now in the beta version, and the students have reported, that they really, really enjoy, particularly they can use it with the touchscreen, but they particularly like using it with the stylus. It just gives them that extra bit of control with it. So that has worked really well. And the students really enjoy it. Like you mentioned, Taryn, about differentiated learning. That is the holy grail in education at the moment. You're always trying to meet students where they're at in their learning. So this is a really good tool, we're all the time picking different tools, find different ways. And this is a really exciting way of doing that. Not only do we find, our students were excited about, using this tool and, getting a chance to get a few hints if they needed to, and it gave them more independence in their own learning. But we also found that for teachers, like the insights at the back of what's happening for the students, it's really amazing to see that, and one of my teachers was saying to me, he liked how you could actually filter by the student, or you could filter by the question, and he found that really helpful. He was a maths teacher, and to quickly find out, well, where are the issues here for this particular topic. So we've got off to a really good start with it, and I'm really excited to see where it goes from here as well. So thanks to Taryn and all the team.
Yeah, keep all the feedback coming, because just the beginning of what we can provide in insights. And then that student, just also want to mention where, equity is so critical for the tools we build. So we will also always make sure that students can equally use keyboard, mouse, building those accessibility features in. But the show your work section is getting big upgrades. And that's really where we want to drive teachers, put them at the helm and drive them to the student work that really needs them to go look at it now. And so as we build in more smarts, we're excited to be able to just supercharge the ability for teachers to look at what they really need to look at from students.
I think I've got a question, Lorraine. As a maths teacher, filtering by question is what we do. We're very dull sometimes. Maths teachers were like, how many percentage points got this question correct? And we really like to know that detail. Was it mainly maths that ran with it at your school? And, Taryn was saying about English teachers as well. What do you see long term for practice sets at your school?
Yeah, it was the maths, and we had a few of the science teachers as well. That was where our pilot sort of started off, and they were the teachers then who were in that space, and kind of it seems to be particularly with that group. But some of our teachers in the digital learning team are from other subjects as well. One of our history teachers was trying it. I think while the maths and science definitely was a good place to start, I think it's open for any subject. And I'm sure as it develops, down the line for the hints and things like that, where, you maybe be able to put in your own, that might be coming down the line at some stage, maybe, or whatever, that they can tailor it maybe to their particular subject. Yeah, I think it'll work across the board, really. And, as Taryn said, they're very open to getting feedback and developing the tool to help teachers make it as effective as possible. So that's really good.
Yeah, 100%. I had a really good play recently with Practicesets, and as a maths teacher, I brought in a PDF of an exam, and I captured it. Not only does it create the questions, which I think is just like maths teachers stuff lives on PDFs. Like, Taryn, who are these people having to convert files? Maths teachers have PDFs everywhere. Just come to us. We've got all the PDFs everybody needs. You can take the PDF and put it in, but it created the questions, but it created the prompts, the hints and the tips. And I didn't have to do anything. And that is just, you think about the journey that we've gone on, like since I came into teaching in the Google for Education ecosystem, back in 2016. You think on the journey that it's come on in that period of time, and we're now at this point where it's going to automatically create questions and help students. I think that's super, super powerful. Taryn, you've touched on some of the things that are coming, and the question did come. Jamie was straight in there. It's like, when, Taryn? When is it coming? But if you were going to say, Taryn, maybe we'll phrase the question a bit differently. If you were going to say, what's the next thing and what's the later thing for Practicesets? What's the immediate focus, and then what's the longer scale focus? I know you've mentioned about the ecosystem, but is there something within Practicesets that you could really lay down as well?
Yeah, so I think when you think about what's next, we've hinted at other languages and region support. So we're actively working really hard because we know that that's in high demand. So we're trying to get what we have today out to those folks. Along with that will come more teacher controls. So I can't fully share everything, but hopefully y'all will tune into some of the ISTE activity that's happening, because there'll be a lot of announcements around there on the blog and other places. So really just giving teachers more control of the way Practicesets work, the content that's in there, and making it a lot easier to create content as well. You mentioned the PDFs. Right now, you manually select everything on a PDF, right? And so we're looking at using our adaptive learning technology to make a lot of that just easier and more seamless and accessible. So that's some stuff that is near term. And then I think when we look a little farther out, we've heard all this stuff about AI in the world right now for the last several months in particular. And I think people have had their positions and conversations around where Google fits in this. But I can tell you on the education side at Google, we take it very, very seriously to make sure that we integrate AI in a really responsible, but also a meaningful way that is going to make a tangible difference for teachers and students, but really keeping teachers at the helm. So I know we might talk a little more about AI too later, but I wanted to mention that we're actively doing a lot of work, but you're not going to see it necessarily immediately because we are making sure that we're testing it thoroughly with teachers. We're making sure that they stay in control of whatever's given. But I think our core mission, which I didn't really mention at the beginning, but Practicesets and overall for Google Classroom, we're trying to build this almost like digital TA for teachers and a tutor for students. But that tutor should never sort of operate independently from what a teacher wants it to do. And so we're working really mindfully around that to make sure we have an intentional way to integrate this technology and not just sprinkle it everywhere. So that's what we're looking at longer term.
Thanks, Taryn. Taryn, we have got some questions in the chat. So here we go. Freestyling. This one's from Stuart. He's not had a play with Practicesets yet, but would you say it's suitable for elementary students?
So our main target is it's in the US grades 3 through 12. So I think that's key stages. Key stage 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what we target, but that again is kind of what we target for Google Classroom overall, because we know the younger kids need more visual kind of UI there. So that would be the target. I'd say where you're going to find the most relevant skills and resources and the hints would be in middle school and high school right now. But we are actively growing it in the other direction. So you just see new stuff on there every day. So I hope that's helpful. But I would say that even if you don't use the resources and skills, and with the teacher control coming soon, you really could use it for anything. I was in my daughter's first grade class. She's 7, so they were loving it, and it was so fun to watch them. I think they were just doing, honestly, it was almost, it was a fun one where there were a lot of questions about kids in their class, and it was almost like an icebreaker type. I think at the end of the year, they were trying to see who knows all about different folks in the class. So that was a really fun example of how it's being used creatively too.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think, Stuart, yeah, absolutely. Like Taryn says, some of the skills, hints and tips might not be age appropriate, but it is still a great questioning tool. We've got a question from Sangeeta from GG, New Delhi, NCR, and tried Practicesets, but having trouble linking to the appropriate skills. Are the skills restricted to a certain curriculum? I think you just touched on that, but perhaps it's because it's a US focus, maybe.
So we have the skills are derived from looking at international standards throughout the world and skills that are just taught everywhere, but they're not all in there, as you mentioned. So what I would really suggest, please encourage teachers to send back feedback. When you can't find the skill, send feedback with the question you have, what skills being suggested, tell us what skill you want to add. As you know, we're really particular about the use of data at Google. And so unless you give us specifics, we can't go in and necessarily look at that data. So please send that feedback, because then we can use that to figure out where some gaps may be. But we will be doing more robust analysis across different regions as we release it in other languages and regions too.
I think as well, the curriculum's massive. So you don't know what you don't know. So really do give that feedback. If there's a skill missing that you're expecting to find in there, please give that feedback in. I had one where it ummed and it ahed, and I thought it was beautiful because it was I'm going to suggest this skill. Oh, did you mean this skill? And I was I want that skill. And then the next time I put it in, it was it didn't even offer the first one. It was I've learned now. I know my mistake. And it knew what it was doing. So, have a really, really good play with it as well. Okay, so we've talked a lot about differentiation. We've talked a lot about personalization of learning. Georgina, as an international educator, I think a question for you is probably around the power of Google Meet in creating that personalized learning experience and changing the direction of a lesson for a teacher. How do you see that happening in Google Meet in that online environment? And how do we change with any Google tool, really, that direction of a lesson?
Yeah, this is probably one of my favorites. You're right. We've seen so many things happen, especially since the pandemic, since COVID lockdown, from online to in-person to split to hybrid, and who knows what's coming next, right? And so I really think that Google Meet gives us the chance to consider spaces and time and places without actually having to leave a room or leave a room. So it just gives us more agility to take the lesson in different directions, either at the discretion of the teacher, whether that's in the same classroom walls or outside. So some of the features that worked really well during online lessons, for example, were the polls. You can just take a really quick assessment for learning and see like who's got it, who doesn't have it, but it also makes sure that kids are engaged and they can actually click buttons. So they're not just focused with one sense on the screen. They actually have to engage other body parts if they're in online. So that's really important. Also, the breakout rooms are really, really super. That's probably my favorite tool in Google Meet as an educator. And when I'm supporting educators, a lot of people don't think about the usability of that tool in other ways that it's not used for. So for example, yes, we can have a breakout room and we can allow students to work in different groups, but it's also really helpful for students in a hybrid setting. Maybe someone, some students are at home. You can buddy students up with someone who's in the classroom and then somebody who's at home, and they can work in their own breakout rooms. You can also randomize the breakout rooms so that you can then split it up and they can check their understanding and collaborate in different ways. So the teacher has a lot of flexibility in how they choose to organize their learning experiences for their students, either randomly or in set groups, and when those groups can happen. The thing that I want to add to this conversation, which I found to be really useful, was we also saw, and I'm sure you ladies have seen that too, is that some students were reluctant maybe to put on their cameras, right, when we were coming into lessons and whatnot. But we actually don't always think about the space as using it for just an audio space. And so, yes, turn the cameras on, turn the cameras off, no problem. But what about just setting up spaces where students can go to work independently in a sort of what I like to call like a blackout space, in that people are there, you can see their little avatars, etc. You know who's in the room, but there's no camera and there's no sound. Or equally use it as a space just for audio. So you're going into a room where they can discuss together and they don't have to worry about cameras. So I think sometimes, and we see that a lot with podcasts and with audiobooks, and we love to engage with those, right, and consume and listen. Well, why not have those spaces that are created inside the classroom? So we found that to be super successful. Or, depending on your school setup, you could maybe use the halls or the gymnasium or the library and just spread out a little bit if you wanted to do something like that. But it's that idea of Google providing us with such a tool as Google Meet, that teachers, as one of you said on this call, are so, I think it was Taryn said that they're so creative, right? And it's that in and of itself is how can teachers maximize on the agility and flexibility of these tools to recreate their learning experiences in meaningful ways. So that's probably one of my favorites. I'm not sure we have time to touch on all of them, or if you wanted to touch on one specifically, Sammy, but
absolute awe of that. And like an audio space. Yeah. I love it. I love it when someone's so creative like you, Georgina, just takes a tool, turns it inside out and goes, yeah, this is the way to use it. And you're like, oh, okay. I think that's amazing. That's so powerful. And that's going to sit with me. That was brilliant. Thanks, Georgina. I think, Lorraine, some people might be thinking we're back face to face, so Google Meet's not really for us, but I know it's still really used at your school. If you want to tell us about how Google Meet is still being used even now when you're in a face-to-face environment.
Yeah, we've still used it when it's useful and appropriate. Even our board of management here, we kind of do some of our meetings still via Google Meet, and then others face to face. So it's nice to have that's kind of a hybrid approach, and we see what suits people. So maybe every second one now would be on Google Meet. We also have retained some of our parent information evenings online. They're often run in the winter time, cold, wet nights. It's difficult for people to get to school on time, to get the information. They might have young kids at home. So we decided that for some of those meetings, we are still holding them online, and people, parents and students seem to be very happy about that. And it's very helpful as well if you're sharing links. Often, we might have a link to different forms that they might have to fill out afterwards, and you put them all up and they have them there, and it's very easy. So we might have maybe 200 people, 300 people on one of those calls if there's parents and students. It might be information about next year and subject choices and that sort of thing, and they can ask questions. So that's really helpful. And it's also really good, at the end of all of those Google Meets, we always get an attendance report, and sometimes you need to check up, if somebody was actually able to attend, or if they're contacting you later on. And it is useful to see who actually did attend those information evenings, and it's great. You just email the attendance report automatically, and you can go back and search for it at any stage if you need to look that up. And even things like our careers teachers, they really try and get people from all disciplines, to talk to our students about careers. So it really opens up that world where before, we were limited maybe on who was near our school or who could travel here to give a presentation, but now it's limitless. We have people from all over the world, and past pupils often as well from different careers that we can link in with so easily now on our Google Meet with our students. So that's really helpful as well. So it's still very much in use, and a very, very helpful tool. And it's great to see that it's still being developed and moving forward all the time.
I love that. Thanks, Lorraine. Yeah, limitless careers. That what a token to take away from this conversation. Limitless career conversations of people you can connect with, like Taryn today that we're connecting with. We are in a different space to. I did mention I was old, to when I was at school and the olden days of things and how they were. I think, Georgina, something that Lorraine's just mentioned there about communicating with parents and crossing boundaries when we're looking at career conversations and things. You and I are in a very ed techy space. We're connected with all sorts of GEG folk all over the world. And I mentioned at the start as well that I have a hearing impairment. So having captions and transcriptions of meetings is so important for me to go back over and to check. But I think as well, Georgina, there's translations as well, and it just opens that. So I think the question, Georgina, is how does Google Meet widen participation for you, do you think?
Yeah, this is actually very important. And I know here, having just recently moved back to the UK, there's a lot of also independent schools that have also students from other countries that come in and board here in schools as well. So it's not just going to other countries, but in Western countries as well, you can have boarders in independent and international schools. So I think it's really, really key, because if you have, for example, in lockdown, we had some students that were trying to travel back, and they were stuck in some countries, either with their families, and how could they get there, and how could they access the information. So with Google Meet being able to translate into these other languages, it meant that parents could support the students and their families that were trying to get back to access the lesson and to access the content. But also, as Lorraine was mentioning, if they had those like coffee sessions or meetings with parents who were coming in and wanted to do virtual tours of the school, for example, that also gets translated in their language. So it just doesn't give access to the teaching and learning experience, but it gives access to the entire family community. Because as we know, in education, it's as I like to say, a three-legged community, right? You've got the family, the parents, the educators, and then the students. So it really closes the gap there and gives higher accessibility. And it was great for me. I was working in schools where Arabic were predominantly the languages spoken before, and so it was great to see that that's equally accessible now. So really, really important tools. And then the other one is just the recorded meets. I know that that's a feature of the Education Plus licensing tool, But that's really, really important accessibility tool that I don't always think we remember necessarily, in that we can play it back at our own speed. And I think that that's really important, because sometimes, like today, for example, look at all of the information our viewers are getting from this one panel conversation alone, right? What if that's, people want to take that and digest that a little bit slower? So the ability to have a recorded Google Meet and people can just go back at their own pace is really, really important too. So yeah, lots of goodies in there with Google Meet.
Yeah, thanks, Georgina. Yeah, you always think in your own little bubble and how education looks in your own world, but that international perspective, even within the UK, it's super refreshing and super important that we reflect and acknowledge that as well. So thank you for sharing that. Okay, so it's the big question now, Taryn, that you've been waiting for. It's the hottest topic in education right now, AI in education. You touched on it before and some of the things that are happening, but I think for me, there's a lot of AI happened already and happening, and Practicesets I think is a really safe way for people to engage with AI. So I just, maybe if you could just share a little bit about how AI is working in Practicesets, and how, for those who are a little bit nervous, it might be a nice easeful way into working with AI in education.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that AI done right, you don't even know it's there. Your life is easier. And so that is sort of our philosophy when we're looking at how to help teachers just be more efficient and get through some of the tasks that, a machine should be able to do for you. Not to replace the thoughtful work you're doing, but to just save you time and be able to make it easier to do spend your time doing the actual teaching and working with students. So some aspects of this for us, right, that are already in Practicesets today is when you type in your question in Practicesets or bring it in through a PDF image, the adaptive learning technology can understand what that problem is and what skill it's kind of getting at, trying to assess for, in a sense, and it will suggest a skill. And then from that, if you select that skill, or let's say it's not right and you want to search and find a different skill, if you add a skill, then resources will automatically be populated for your students. So hints, videos, skill cards that have explainers. We now have some new step-by-step. You can think about the type of thing that's in like a solver, but without the answer, as a set of steps that will help the student work through the problem. A lot of these resources, they're just growing in coverage as well as depth that we can provide. That's all right. That's all driven by the same AI technology. So we really ensure, though, that we add some layers onto it and we make sure it's really safe and it's relevant. And so a lot of that is locked down. So we're not just, surfacing anything that we find on the internet through there, using something that you would find in Bard, let's say. It really is curated after we're able to use that adaptive learning technology to identify the stuff that's relevant. So we'll continue enhancing those ways, ways, as I mentioned earlier, to automate and make it easier to bring in content from anywhere. We know teachers already have content they love and use, and so we want to enable that in Practicesets. And then getting deeper with the ability to provide insights back to teachers. So being able to identify, again, where a pattern we may see with student work, or a pattern that is happening with the class around performance related to a skill, being able to surface that up. It's a lot easier to do it now that we have some of this technology, as well as being able. So another great example of keeping the teacher at the helm, but using this tech to help, would be things like paragraph style answers. Being able to potentially suggest correctness to the teacher. So we wouldn't show anything directly to the students yet, but being able to have a teacher have a sense of what this, if they were on target with the question or not, right? Just trying to assist the teacher any way we can, the way a TA would.
Getting us all super excited, Taryn. It's going to come again in the chat now. When, Taryn? When, Taryn? When, Taryn? Tomorrow. It's all happening tomorrow. No. When it's done. I think another feature of AI, Georgina, that we don't often think is AI and it's learning its skills is originality reports in Google Classroom. How do you see these being used as a learning opportunity? I'm conscious that you and I are probably on a similar page of like plagiarism checker and all this kind of stuff. It's not for that. It's for a learning opportunity. And how do you see that happening, Georgina?
Yeah, you're right. It definitely is a tricky one, especially with all the AI that's come out now. But I really like the way you phrased the question there, Sammy, as a learning opportunity. And I think hopefully everybody's on the same page in the chat and watching this on demand as far as education, because it's never, it shouldn't be about, in my humble opinion, bringing up what is wrong with what the students done. You know, you talked about showing the progress and the journey, and that's what it is. It's a learning journey, right? And it's being able to identify, hey, I noticed XYZ, where, you know, can you let me know where you found that? Where did this come from, etc. And in case anybody didn't know, in the chat watching, if you're going to be new to Education Plus coming up soon, it checks within the domain and it can check anything on Google search. But again, because, you know, as Taryn can attest to here with BARD and GPT, etc., those are not under 18. So those cloud spaces are completely separate from the education cloud spaces, and therefore they don't interact. So the originality reports currently, of course, Taryn will correct me if that's going to be changing anytime soon, are not going to be integrated. So we won't be able to check whether or not AI has been used, but that's not the intent of originality reports, right? It's to be able to check how are the students learning, how are they progressing. So one way that we really like to use originality reports during lockdown, for example, were to pull up as the educator, either in the Google Meet or when we were in person back in the classroom, was to pull up different excerpts. And you can do it in a way through the assignment portfolio in the UI of Google Classroom, so that you actually don't see which students have pulled it up, and you can use it as a comparison tool. Also, some teachers really like to have the actual files that were pulled up in the Google search, for example. Google Scholar's not included in the originality reports right now, although it is a popular feature request, but it's not using Scholar. But you could equally have a Google Book or a Google Scholar file up next to it, and you can have it there to compare and say, hey, what might we pull out of there? And the other part of it is really using it as a citation learning opportunity. So, you know, the citation, you know, we're all on our mobile phones like 24/7, right? And students are not far behind. They're on their devices a lot as well. And so being able to help them say, hey, yes, we've taken that information, but how do we think about responsibly using the documentation that we've found, whether it's citing it, referencing it, you know, wherever you are in the world. That may definitely look differently coming from different schools, but using it for opportunities to showcase how we can do that, I think, is really important. Conversations about anything else, you know, is really between the educator and the student to have offline, but being able to showcase opportunities for growth as a class or even in small groups was really successful with originality reports, especially during lockdown. So.
Oh, amazing, John. Yes, we are on the same page. It was a risk there that we might not have been, but there we go. We are on the same. Amazing. Thank you very much for sharing. Okay, ladies, I'm just going to pop you off the stream for 2 seconds, and I'm going to bring Chris on from C Learning, and then we'll come back to say a quick goodbye. But I'm going to bring Chris into the stream now. Chris from C Learning, we've talked a lot about a lot of the features of Google Workspace for Education. I've just got the QR code up now, just while I bring you onto the screen. But over to you. If people scan this QR code, they can get a free trial of the features that we've talked about today. And then over to you, Chris.
Yeah, thank you so much. What a fantastic hours worth of conversation there. I was actually surprised, Sammy, when you said you're up in a minute. I couldn't believe how quickly that hour had flown by. A massive thank you to Sammy, Lorraine, Georgina and Taryn, of course, from everyone at C Learning. Really informative discussion today. Fantastic. Yeah, hi, I'm Chris from C Learning, Software Solutions Manager. I was brought in to lead on Google Workspace, something that I continue to do, and I'm extremely proud to do so. My contact details will be shared in the stream, along with my calendar invite, I believe, as well. So please reach out to me. I'm always happy to help. I know Sammy's very kindly shared the QR code with you there for the trials. We will, of course, reach out to you directly following the webinar with details of how you can sign up to the 60-day 50-user trial. We offer a fully supported trial, everything from getting the licenses set up, assigning them, right through to the advice on all the fantastic teaching and learning tools that you've learned about today. So we'll be with you every step of the way with that. The trial will give you the opportunity to test these things out, come back to us, ask questions, and it will give you an you'll be able to then make an informed decision on the best path forward to Google Workspace for education. We believe that Google Workspace is an incredibly powerful and ever-evolving platform. Anybody who's used it for the last couple of years will see how things have developed. Practicesets, incredibly exciting thing that Taryn's gone through today. We love it. We believe it brings a tremendous opportunity to you, your staff, and most importantly to your students, and we're happy to support you with that journey moving forward. One thing I would just like to mention is I would have to go with the picnic in terms of the chocolate bar. Here's one that Cadbury prepared earlier. Yeah, that's got chocolate, nuts, and raisins. It's got it all. And you can clearly,
Taryn.
Yeah, and there's for anybody who doesn't know what a picnic is. And also, you can clearly tell that I grew up in the 1980s. But yeah, just another massive thank you to everybody who's taken the time out today on the YouTube stream to comment on questions. Sammy, Lorraine, Georgina, and Taryn, a massive thank you once again from everybody at C Learning for helping put this on today. So I'll hand back over to you, Sammy.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, just brought you back on, ladies, just to say a quick thank you for your time, your generosity, and your generosity of spirit in your answers today. I've thoroughly enjoyed preparing this and delivering this today. So thank you, Lorraine, Georgina, and Taryn, for joining us today. Well done, everyone. Job well done. I wish everyone a super duper evening, and hopefully we'll connect with you all really soon. Take care, everyone.